Live from South Florida, the Brian Mudd Show starts right now. News Radio 610, WIOD.
The president's asked for additional border wall from his first day in office. We've received some funding, and not the full amount that we've asked for from Congress. That appropriated funding is already being directed to build wall. But then he declared a national emergency to access additional Department of Defense funding, counter-drug funding, as well as military construction funding that we're now deploying to fund additional wall projects, and including key areas of the border where we need to replace wall that's not effective at all and put new wall there, and also extend our coverage of the border. So with the president's commitment, we're going to have 450 plus miles of wall done by the end of 2020.
That is the acting U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security on yesterday, Sunday Morning Futures on the Fox News channel with Maria Bartiromo. And when we take a look at the situation at the border, something that I think is often overlooked, it's kind of like law enforcement. We'll talk a lot about issues with law enforcement and this and that. What about the actual people carrying out the jobs? You know, it's something that I never take for granted. It's part of the reason that we spend as much time putting the emphasis on those in local law enforcement that we do. And also why I highlight the outstanding service of many, because without good people who want to do these jobs, where are we as a society? And on this note, we're joined now by Dr. Alex Del Carmen from the School of Criminology, Criminal Justice and Strategic Studies at Tarleton State University. Dr. Del Carmen, good to talk with you again. I want to get your thoughts about the potential pitfalls and issues we seem to be having now with the Border Patrol, and specifically morale with those that are already working, let alone the shortages that seem to be growing.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me. Well, you know, at the end of the day, what's happened here is you've got a whole bunch of really good, men and women that have joined the law enforcement ranks to protect our border, to make us, safer. And they sacrifice a great deal. You know, it's not one of those jobs where it pays a great deal of money or people are going to be particularly grateful for what you do. But what's happened is that this issue has become so political now that they're feeling the brunt of many people just disliking them. Folks, sending death threats, and quite honestly, just a high burnout rate, which really does concern us criminologists in the future as to whether or not we're going to be able to recruit able bodies to do the job.
You know, when I take a look at what's playing out right now with the Border Patrol and with ICE, it feels to me like a different version of a similar thing to Vietnam vets and what they were experiencing coming back from Vietnam. Obviously, the circumstances vastly different. But are we kind of in a new version of that, to where many of these individuals are feeling the negativity the way that maybe many Vietnam vets did when they returned?
Well, it's at the end of the day, people that serve the military and people that serve law enforcement, they do have in common the fact that they serve our nation, right, in different capacities, a different scope of work. So to your analogy, I think that what's happening is that people are just, again, there's become such a political issue now that I think, what's happened is decisions that are made in Washington, D.C. by the President of the United States and by others that basically have that level of power to carry it out are being followed as the Constitution prescribes it by law enforcement entities throughout the nation, and they're the ones that are being demonized, and so I think it's really sad, because law enforcement, they often do not have the voice, they do not have the platform to be able to defend themselves, and they have to sort of take it and continue on their job every day and focus on what they're doing. And the many success stories that they've had in being able to prevent attacks. You look at the FBI, you look at NSA, you look at various entities throughout the United States. They have been incredibly successful in the past in being able to prevent terrorist attacks, but they just simply don't make the headlines. What makes the headlines is the demonization of law enforcement, and they're feeling the impact of that to the extent that I think we're going to have a really hard time recruiting folks in the future.
You referenced the politics of it being at the crux of so much of the issue right now with recruitment and overall morale with the Border Patrol. I was heartened to hear something over the weekend from former Obama Attorney General Eric Holder. who came out and said, look, if we don't have borders, we got a problem. We've got to have borders, and trying to maybe tamp down the rhetoric of many of the 2020 Democrats that have only been further politicizing this issue, seemingly to try to figure out how to get the best open borders position for their own perceived benefit in the Democratic primary. Do you feel that someone like an Eric Holder, for example, and people that might come from the opposite end of the spectrum politically from President Trump, can that help bridge this divide in this country?
Maybe, but at the end of the day, immigration, and I've studied it, profusely over the years. I'm actually a first-generation immigrant to the United States from Nicaragua, and I used to live in South Florida for many years. And I can tell you right now that at the end of the day, immigration is an extremely complex issue. It is an issue that has affected our country for centuries. It's not a new issue, right? But what we do know, however, is that it's an emotional issue for many people, right? So people respond to it emotionally instead of intellectually, and we just simply don't understand. We don't know what we don't know about immigration right now. And what's really sad is that people are going by sound bites, and they're forming opinions, engaging in protest around the United States based on sound bites without really understanding fully what is behind the immigration issue, what are the options that we have as a country to deal with it. But I think universally, most people that are moderate, most people that understand it, they would all agree that we have to control immigration to some degree in our country, as every other country in the world does, right? So without taking political aim at one way or the other, I think that's the bottom line for all of us.
We'll leave it there. That's a great assessment for sure. Appreciate it. Dr. Alex Del Carmen, again, criminologist from the School of Criminology, Criminal Justice, and Strategic Studies at Tarleton State University. Thank you so much.
Thank you.